Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. We have the weekly challenges up for this video and we do have the return of a fan favourite. The all JGTC event is finally back after being absent from GT7 for a few months. So on top of a fan favourite special event returning, we do have a pretty decent week overall with some quality rewards on offer, including a 6-star roulette ticket reward which can net you up to 1,000,000 credits, or even some of the game's better cars for absolutely free. Now in terms of this week, it is December week 1. It will end on the 12th of the 12th at midnight. In terms of event number 1 this week, it's the Japanese FF Challenge 450. This one takes place at Tsukuba Circuit. We will then head over for the American Sunday Cup 600 on Willow Springs International Raceway on the Big Willow layout. We then have the Gran Turismo Trophy at Interlagos, one of my favourite ones out of the entire collection of those events. And whilst it does look a bit bigger on the surface, being a 7-lap event, unfortunately it's a typical sprint race. We then move over to one of the game's latest events, Race of Turbo Sports Cars at Mount Panorama or Bathurst. And of course, to finish off, we have the JGTC event, this time taking place at Kyoto Driving Park. Now in terms of the rewards for this week, for completing one event it's 100,000 credits, for completing 3 is 200,000 credits, and completing all 5 will net you that 6-star roulette ticket reward, which as mentioned can have some of the best rewards in game. So let's get started then with event number 1 of the week. This is the Japanese FF Challenge 450 at Tsukuba Circuit, of course aimed at front wheel drive cars of a 450 pp rating. And of course, as always, I will stay as close as possible to any recommendations and run the game on the hardest difficulty. So let's begin. My car of choice here was going to be a bog standard Honda Civic Type R. Absolutely made for this event and one of the better cars to tackle it with. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a very easy event to begin the week with. There are going to be 8 cars in total on the grid, meaning there's 7 AI up in front of us over 2 laps of Tsukuba, which really doesn't take long to do a single lap. So whilst you haven't got much time to get through the grid, you shouldn't really need it. A lot of the cars here are going to be typically slow. Even some of the faster cars like the Integras and the Civics seem to be limited in how quick they'll actually get around the track, so you won't have to worry too much about the AI. Now a lot of these smaller events do typically have a lot of randomization to them. Thankfully that is not the case for this event. You will pretty much always have one of the Civics up front or one of the Integras, and as mentioned they are very limited in how they actually perform here. Even though we're in identical cars, you can see my Civic's able to just drive past the AI no problem whatsoever. So really you should be able to get this one done no problem at all. Now in terms of completing 2 laps, it should only take you a couple of minutes to get it done, and that is going to give you tick number 1 of the week. Now in terms of the payout for this one, it's not great, 10,500 credits with that clean race bonus over 2.7 miles. However, you do also get 100,000 credits on top for completion of 1 event this week. Moving on, next we have the American Sunday Cup 600. So the event itself really isn't that difficult and we're on a fairly easy layout. The only place you need to watch for is that final corner of Big Willow. It can be incredibly awkward at times, and especially with high-powered American muscle cars, you're probably asking for trouble if you get it wrong. My car of choice for this one would be the Hellcat Charger, a ton of horsepower, not too great for the corners, but definitely made for a fun time. So let's get started then. It's going to be a 3-lap sprint race. There are 10 cars in total, 9 AI cars up in front. Now it's definitely a mixed bag in terms of AI performance here. You will see that some of the classic American muscle cars are relatively slow, get a bit all over the place, and should be easy pickings on these straights. However, there are some other vehicles that will kind of work their way through the pack, mainly the Camaros, a DeLorean that's typically always up front, and the classic Challengers all seem to perform relatively well here. And whilst the grid is pretty much set in stone for this event once again, I do feel like the performance of the cars here is much better than what we saw with something like the FF Challenge, where those cars seem very limited. Other cars, once they start breaking through the pack, can be incredibly quick. As you can see here, this Camaro right in front of us in 3rd place did actually get caught up in the pack, which is a good thing for us as that car is very strong here. We'd eventually get a decent drive on it, meaning that we then have to get down that pretty big gap to the lead cars. That is going to be typically the DeLorean, which is the Easter egg car, which we're going to pick off just here, and the Challenger. For some reason that car is incredibly strong here, especially in comparison to some of the other classic American muscle cars. We're going to jump down the inside of the final corner and take the lead, as well as go on to take a fairly easy win here. So upon finishing, that is going to give us tick number 2 of the week. Of course, we don't get any special reward for this one. We do get paid out though, only 22,500 credits with that clean race bonus, so you're not going to be earning too much for this event. Moving on to event number 3 of the week then. This is the Vision Gran Turismo Trophy at Interlagos. Perhaps my favourite event of all the VGT ones. Of course, this has an 850 pp rating in place, and whilst it's open to all VGTs, you may end up butchering some of the faster ones to get them to that limit. Now, in terms of the event, I went for the Lexus VGT. This is basically a GT500 car on steroids. It's pretty damn good here. It does have an overtake feature, plenty of grip, plenty of aero, and did actually make short work of Interlagos. Again, apart from that final stretch, it's not very speed heavy, and if you can make up a ton of time through the twisty middle section, you're going to be absolutely flying past the AI. Now, it is over 7 laps, but it will fly by in these cars. It is more in line with like a 5-lap sprint, if I'm honest. Now, in terms of the AI themselves, it's definitely a mixed bag to begin with. However, once you start getting towards the front, there is certainly some cars you're going to want to watch out for. Some of these VGTs are incredibly quick at 850 pp. That is mainly going to be the Peugeot VGT, Jaguar VGT, and the Porsche VGT. Those cars are incredibly fast, especially on that straight section where they will make short work of you if you don't have a massive amount of top speed. And because we're running a car that is mainly here to tackle the midsection, that did mean we'd actually run into a bit of trouble with one of the Porsches a little later in the race. So currently we're just working our way through the pack. We're on lap 3 here, and we are right up towards the front. And you will notice that even once we get ourselves into second place, there's a fair margin to the lead car, which is probably the toughest out of all of the opponents here. That is going to be the Porsche VGT. Now, this thing, because it's an EV, is incredibly heavy and clunky on the brakes, doesn't go too well through the corners, but upon accelerating and hitting that ridiculous top speed, it's incredibly quick. And as you can see, it landed us in trouble the first time around that we overtook it. We would eventually catch it back up again on lap 6, going around the outside and then just using that overtake, and the Porsche would try and battle us back. So it was time to deploy some defensive driving here just to cover the car off. We know that it's going to have to brake earlier than us, we know it's going to be slower through the corner, and we just want to try and brake free before it accelerates and hits that massive high top end on the final straight. Eventually we would manage to get away in the midsection, building up an 8.5 second lead. That is going to give us tick number 3 of the week. In terms of the payout for this one, it's 88,000 credits. Unfortunately not getting that clean race bonus due to that accident. We're going to get a daily marathon of a 3-star and 200,000 credits on top. Moving into event number 4 then, this is one of the latest events to GT7. This is Race of Turbo Sports Cars, taking place at Mount Panorama or Bathurst. Absolutely a fantastic track, and I am glad to see it back in game and getting a bit more love by Polyphony. Of course, this is a 700 pp event for turbo sports cars, and my car of choice here would be the brand new Cosworth RS. So I'm actually driving it in a 700 pp Le Mans spec, which means it's built for the straight line speed. We do have decent amount of acceleration with the 4-wheel drive. Of course, decent straight line speed for the start and finish of the track. However, in the mountain, we are definitely going to struggle a bit in terms of downforce. Now, a lot of these cars are, again, kind of built like this one. They're very quick in a straight, but when it comes to the tight, twisty mountain section, they are absolutely off the pace. So even in a, low aero car like we're using here, you should still be able to make short work of them. Again, they do seem to kind of just potter around at that point. You should be able to just pick them off one by one by one. And again, if you've got decent straight line speed, you shouldn't have any issues. However, just note this is an incredibly randomized event, and it has a wide range of cars that it can actually choose from. If it picks something like the Maserati MC20, then you're probably going to find it much tougher than I did here. Thankfully, my lead car was another one of the Escort RS Cosworths, so I didn't have too much trouble actually completing it this time around. However, other times I've ran it, some of the faster cars have appeared and they are incredibly quick and make the event much tougher, almost double the amount of, difficulty. So because of that randomization and the fact that it can be incredibly difficult and awkward at times, I do recommend a very strong 700 pp build. If you've got something that you typically run at Le Mans and you're comfortable with it, it can hit decent top speeds and it can tackle corners, then I would recommend just using that build because you'll probably be comfortable with it and do much better. Again, it just kind of takes away that randomization difficulty, but you could get a very easy event like I did here. As you can see, by the time we come up across the line, we've got almost a 50-second gap over 5 laps, which is ridiculous. So we are going to get tick number 4 of the week, and of course a fairly decent payout for this one, 135,000 credits. So with 4 events of the week done and dusted, we're going to move into the special event for this week, which is the return of the All JGTC Championship. Of course, this is very much aimed at the older Gran Turismo games, very much a nostalgic event featuring the likes of the NSXs, GTRs, Supras, McLarens, and in terms of the event, it is very open. It's a mix of road cars and race cars, so we don't have to worry about fuel. My car of choice for this one would be the Calsonic GTR. However, we do have only a single change to it, which is going to be the racing softs. Now again, as mentioned, because this is a mix of road cars and race cars, they haven't enabled fuel or of course tire life. It just would be completely all over the place if that was the case. It takes place over 10 laps, and if you don't overdo it with the car that you're using, yes, you can use something like the Tomahawk here, you will probably end up with a very, very enjoyable event. So again, as mentioned, for me, the only changes I actually have to this car is just sticking a set of racing softs, and it was incredibly enjoyable. I had some great on-track battles here. I wasn't too powerful and just walking away with it. In fact, I would say I was relatively underpowered. Now again, there is quite a bit of randomization here. I'm just going to warn you now, if you end up with something like the McLaren Longtail out in front to begin with, and it's not picking off the pack, there's a high chance that car will just be absolutely gone. However, as you can see here, for me, that car was stuck in the middle of the pack for the longest time, picking off AI with myself, and again, it just made for some fantastic racing. But again, be warned, that car does have a high chance of spawning in at the front of the pack, and at that point it will probably just disappear off into the distance unless you're running something insanely overpowered. However, if you get this event set up correctly and it does spawn everything in the correct way, it's going to be incredibly fun for you. So we started making some decent moves early on. Of course, we did end up following this McLaren, which we would thankfully pick off early enough to try and get away from it. Again, an incredibly quick car, that one of course rated as a Group 2 in comparison to our Group 3. We'll then move up through the field, and on lap 5 we would pick off one of the NSXs, another very good choice for this event, incredibly quick around this track, so just bear that in mind. If you do want to use an NSX, it is fully usable. We did eventually on lap 6 catch up to the main lead pack. It would actually be the other GTR, the Pennzoil one, that we're going to pick off first. So we're going to move to the inside, that's going to shift us round to the outside and then back to the inside line to get this position absolutely confirmed, and that is going to move us into a podium position. Now up ahead we do have one of the Group 3 McLarens and of course one of the NSXs. Again, both very, very quick cars. McLaren not so much, it's incredibly quick in a straight line, just doesn't have that ridiculous area that the NSX has, which we would follow around onto lap 7 and try our hardest to get a move done. However, eventually it would come off this sweeping right-hander as we throw it down the inside and just get the drag out of the corner, and thankfully took the lead. In the end, after 10 laps, we would win by 4.6 seconds. And that is going to be tick number 5 of the week, all 5 events done and dusted. The payout for this one is 150,000 credits without the clean race bonus. Unfortunately, a little bit of a bump did lose us that, but we do end up with the 6-star roulette ticket reward. So let's go ahead and open up our prizes for this week. Up first is our daily marathon, which unfortunately was the lowest rated I can get at a 3-star, and it is going to kind of, serve its purpose as a terrible ticket. As you can see, we're going to end up with one of these smaller credit prizes, around about 10,000 credits added to the account. Really kind of chump change there. Then of course we do have 100k to add to the account for completing one event this week, and of course for completing 3 is 200,000 credits. And finally we have the best reward to open up, a 6-star roulette ticket reward. As you can see from my roulette ticket here, I had a bunch of cash, so 500k, and a couple of VGTs, the Tomahawk Group 1 and the Mini. We're going to end up with 500k, which is probably the prize that I would have wanted here. However, the Tomahawk would have been decent to then just go ahead and sell on. And there we go, that is it for this round of weekly challenges. I do think we had a relatively decent week overall. The prizes were actually quite good, and of course seeing that JGTC event return is fantastic. Probably the favourite one of mine that they ever did. I just absolutely love the atmosphere of that one. It really does feel like the Gran Turismo games of old. Anyway, let me know what you think of this week's weekly challenges. I will be back tomorrow. I do apologise for the delay in content, but I'm hoping that daily uploads can be returned now. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.